In this video, I'm going to show you how to take a rigged cape or any other rigged simulated mesh and run it through the physics system, making sure that these characters are rigged. The cape is rigged with the proto controller setup. Voxel-only controllers will not work in this mode. You must have a valid proto rig here, which is quite easy to do. But we're going to take this through a physics sim and we're going to get a perfectly looping result. And we're going to show you how to do that. So let's get into it. So what we're going to first do is we're going to make sure that our animation is looping perfectly. And let's just do that. We're going to frame out our root controller as our camera track. And we're going to toggle our last frame and our first frame. You can see that there's a subtle shift here. So we're going to make this frame loopable pretty easy. Right click, Control A to select everything. Right click on the root to make it relative, and then shift click to deselect the root because we want to base everything off the root. Then we're going to highlight our frames back here, back to about the stride. We're going to go into our linear interval edit mode. And then we're going to come to our first frame of our animation here. We're going to come up to our copier tab up here. This can also be found under the scene settings under copier. Well, this is the same. It's going to uncheck our moving pivot and turn us into our fixed pivot mode. Make sure we have relative turned on and that we are in global mode as well. We're going to edit copy from our first frame, skip down to our last track, and we're going to edit paste. And that's going to give us a perfectly looping animation right there. So we play it, you can see, yay, everything is looping perfectly. We're going to turn off our interval edit mode and get into our caped simulation here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create some warm-up frames. So how we do that is I'm going to come down to the cape, select the entire cape track, and I'm just going to turn those all into keys. And this will become apparent later on when I'm kind of transferring them back, but I want to do this so I can basically just record the physics to the keyframes instead of the interval. Once I do that, I want to mark my start and end points with flags. So I like to control right click to select an entire column, set a label there, same thing over here. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself some extra frames, 300 or so should do it. Extend this out, and then I'm going to select my animation here, and I'm going to go over to my cycle creator and create cycle with position offset. Finally, I'm going to drag about 1.5 cycles out. We should see our marked frames here, about a half cycle out. And I'm going to commit that by removing the cycles. So now I have the keys here. I'm going to frame in on the middle section here. And I'm going to do that by highlighting the range and pressing F6. Okay, once I have that established, I can simply toggle between the full scene and the last scene by just right-clicking on the time bar here. Okay, back here in the time bar, I'm going to click this scene here so I can select everything. I'm going to click my object properties. I'm going to apply on selected intervals, so all these values will get applied to every keyframe in here. And then I'm going to shift to my point edit mode, and I'm going to do a Control A again to select everything. And then I'm going to double click holding down the shift button to deselect my cape. I'm going to come down here to my auto physics apply section, roll that down, and I want to make these values 100 because what I want is I don't want any of the physics to be applied to the body. I just want it applied to the cape. Any object that is at 0 will get physics applied to it. In this case, only our cape. Additionally, I'm going to come down here. I'm going to make sure I have some good secondary motion keys on my cape here. I like to be 10 or lower for cloth, 4 or lower for dampening. For cloth, seems to give a good result, but mileage may vary depending on your proto controls. So I'm going to frame back in on my section here, my middle section. Again, we have some warm-up frames here. a little bit of tail, and then we have our bulk of what we want here. So next what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn on my physics controller. Okay, he's going to be green. He's going to turn solid green, but the cape's not moving because we don't have any simulation applied to it just yet. So all I want to do is enable secondary motion and separation of motion. And then we're going to wait a bit until that calculates. Okay, our simulation's done here. He's going to turn green, and we're going to see that if we hit play, we have a moving cape, and it actually loops very perfectly with no hitches in between. Okay, so now once that's done, we want to commit it to our control rig here, and we want to commit it to our point controllers. So we're just going to click on the cape here to frame out this entire range that we're in, and then we're going to click snap to physics. We're going to say yes, and then turn physics off, and you're going to notice that all our animation has now been transferred to our base rig. Okay. From here, we can make additional edits on interval frames or whatever. If you have like, some penetrating elbows or something, you can do that stuff. There's other ways to fix that as well. Deal with those in later videos. But the key of this is, since we have those warm-up frames, right? If we didn't have those warm-up frames, we would have effectively been starting from this base pose here, and then the physics would have ramped up, and you would have seen the cape flutter out and get to a point where it needed to settle. The key is we need it to settle into a nice flowing loop, given the cadence of our walk, and that happens at about the second cycle. Additionally, something you can do is if you have faster motions, you might need to create an additional cycle, like 2 or 3 cycles, and you might be, doing your simulation down on the third cycle here. But this process works all the same. So again, with our range highlighted here, we want to um, not use this section of our animation. We want to instead move our cape dynamics down here where there is no cape dynamics. So what we do is we come over here, and with this range selected in the middle here, we're going to double click on the cape to select everything. We're going to again right click here to zoom in our bore, and we're going to single click on the track to frame out that range again. Okay. Now the next thing is to convert all these to FK keys. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that in your point controllers, by rolling up basic and rolling it back down again, you're going to see these FKIK point settings. You want to make sure that you have from timeline selected in these 3 options. What this is going to allow you to do is take your cape and choose whether you want it to be an FK key or an IK key. In this case, we want it to be an FK key so it completely follows along with its parent, which is the chest. To do that, with this range selected just in this mode, we click FK. Now what we can do is we can right click to go all the way back out to the base, and then simply middle click drag your keys back into position. And now our cape has been transferred to the beginning of our animation. We can further clean up the end of this. We don't need these frames anymore. Click once to commit, click once again to delete those keys, frame out your animation, and you'll notice all that work that you did has been transferred back to the base. Now, sometimes you might see a little subtle shift, like we have a subtle shift here, and we want to clean that up, okay? So all we have to do simply is just like I said again, just kind of give yourself a little bit of room, go into interval edit mode, go over here. I'm going to turn on my box controller mode, and I'm going to select all my controllers, shift select my root, right click on my root to commit to that pivot point. We already have these settings set. Copy, go to the bottom, hit paste. And now everything has been committed perfectly. So now when we shuttle back and forth, we'll notice that the character no longer shifts, and we have a perfect looping animation. And that's all you need to do. If you like this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. I'll be posting more Cascadeur tutorials with different workflow tips in the future.